Disclaimer: this content is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised. I never thought the night would end like this. We were just two people in a kitchen, him leaning on the counter, me pretending to look for tea I didn't really want. It was supposed to be a normal evening. Nothing out of place. Just the usual rhythm of married life, familiar yet quiet. But something about tonight felt different. The way he looked at me. The silence between us. It wasn't awkward, it was heavy. Like something was building, waiting to tip over. Jason, my husband, had always been the calm one. Reliable. Gentle. The kind of man who rarely raised his voice, who brought me soup when I was sick and held my hand when the world felt too much. We'd been married 5 years, comfortable, stable, maybe too stable. Somewhere along the way, the spark dimmed. We started talking more like roommates than lovers. I guess that's what made tonight feel so unexpected. There was an edge in his eyes I hadn't seen before. A quiet confidence. "You okay?" he asked, voice low. I nodded too quickly. "Yeah. Just tired." But he didn't buy it. He stepped closer. Not too close, but closer than usual. There was a pause, long enough to feel the pull between us. Something shifted in the air. It wasn't just about love anymore. It was about the years we'd both spent holding back, brushing things under the rug, pretending everything was fine. And then it happened. He reached for my hand, not in the way he used to when we were dating, not in a soft or careful way. This time, it was sure. Like he already knew the answer before I could give it. He pulled me closer, and suddenly, all the little reasons I had for keeping my distance felt paper thin. I should have stepped back. I should have asked him what he was doing. But I didn't. I couldn't. There's something strange about falling in love with someone you already married. It sneaks up on you. It feels familiar but new. That night, it was like seeing Jason for the first time again. But even as I leaned into the moment, part of me felt the ground shift beneath my feet. Because there's a part of this story I haven't told you yet. A part Jason doesn't know. A reason why saying yes might be the biggest mistake of my life. And before I could say anything, before I could explain, he kissed me. Now everything's different. And I'm not sure what comes next. My heart was pounding, and I couldn't tell if it was from the kiss or the guilt tightening in my chest. Jason pulled back just slightly, searching my face like he was waiting for something, for me to say I felt it too. And I did. But I also felt something else. Something I hadn't had the courage to admit, even to myself. The truth is, 2 months ago, everything started to shift. Not with Jason, but with me. I'd reconnected with an old friend from college, Liam. It started innocent, just coffee, catching up. But he reminded me of a version of myself I hadn't seen in years. Someone who laughed without thinking. Someone who didn't overanalyze every word or carry the weight of being a perfect wife. I never told Jason about Liam because it didn't feel like cheating. Not physically. But emotionally? That was harder to explain. And now, standing in the kitchen with Jason's arms around me, I realized I'd been living in 2 different worlds. One with the man who had built a life with me. The other with someone who had quietly lit a spark I thought had died. I never meant to let it go this far. But it had. Jason brushed a strand of hair behind my ear, his voice soft. "You felt distant lately. I thought maybe you were just tired. But now I'm wondering if there's more." I froze. There was more. So much more. But how do you tell your husband that you've been hiding pieces of your heart, even if they never fully left your chest? "I don't know what to say," I whispered. He didn't press. He just looked at me, eyes gentle but guarded. Maybe he already knew. Maybe he felt it too. The shift. The silence that had grown louder between us over the past few weeks. Jason wasn't just trying to bring back the romance tonight. He was trying to find something he feared he'd already lost. And I I didn't know if I was ready to be found. Because the truth is, sometimes the heart gets pulled in directions you never expected. And sometimes, even love isn't enough to fix what's broken. But that night, something had started. Something neither of us could ignore. And neither of us knew just how far it would go. I stood there in the kitchen, heart racing, trying to make sense of the emotions pulling me in opposite directions. Jason hadn't said another word. He just watched me, waiting, sensing something was off but not sure how deep it went. The way he held me wasn't just out of love. It was out of fear. Fear of losing me, maybe. Or maybe fear that he already had. That kiss had changed something. Not because it was new, but because it felt like a question I didn't know how to answer. Could I keep pretending things were okay when they weren't? Could I keep holding on to something that felt safe but not full? And then there was Liam. We hadn't crossed any lines, not physically. But I'd started looking forward to his messages too much. I'd saved a few with heart emojis and reread them late at night. I knew what that meant. I knew I'd stepped into dangerous ground. I hadn't told him I was married, not directly. He knew I was seeing someone, but I kept the details vague. Maybe I wanted to believe I was still in control. But deep down, I knew I wasn't. A week ago, Liam had asked me to meet again. Just a walk, he said. Nothing serious. Just to talk. I told him I'd think about it. And I had, every day since. Jason finally broke the silence. Do you still love me? He asked, barely above a whisper. That question hit harder than I expected. I did love him. Or at least, I thought I did. But was love supposed to feel this uncertain? This heavy? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed on the counter. Jason glanced at it. So did I. It was Liam. Just one word, tonight? I reached for it quickly, locking the screen, but the look on Jason's face told me everything. He didn't need to ask who it was. He already knew. The room felt smaller suddenly. The air tighter. I'm not stupid, Jason said quietly. I've seen the way you check your phone lately. The way you pull away when I try to get close. I don't want to trap you in something you don't want. But I need to know, is there someone else? My throat went dry. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Because how do you explain something you're still figuring out yourself? Jason took a step back. Not in anger, just in defeat. If there is, I'll let you go. I love you enough to do that. That's when the guilt started to crush me. Because he was a good man. A kind man. And I was the one who had changed. But why? And what did that say about me? Before I could respond, a soft knock came at the door. It was nearly 10 p.m. And I already knew who it was. The knock at the door echoed louder than it should have. Jason didn't move. Neither did I. We just stood there, caught in a moment that felt like it could split our lives in half. My phone was still in my hand, the screen dark now, but the message from Liam felt like it was burning through it. Jason's eyes didn't leave mine. His voice was low but steady. You don't have to lie anymore. I shook my head, barely. I wasn't trying to hurt you. But you did. Another knock. This time softer. Like whoever was on the other side was unsure now. Hesitating. I took a breath and started walking toward the door. My legs felt heavy, like each step came with the weight of every choice I'd made in the past 2 months. Behind me, I heard Jason exhale, long and slow. It wasn't angry, it was sad. Like he already knew how this part of the story ended. My hand touched the doorknob, but I didn't turn it. I stood there, frozen, heart pounding. If I opened the door, I didn't know what I'd be walking into. And worse, I didn't know what I'd be walking away from. Jason was behind me now, a few steps away. If you open that door, he said quietly, I won't stop you. But don't come back unless you're sure. Those words cut through me. Not because they were cruel, they weren't. They were honest. Real. And maybe that's what scared me the most. This wasn't just about romance or marriage or emotional tension. This was about two people who had built a life together, and the silent cracks that had started to break it apart. The doorbell rang. The sound was soft but final. I closed my eyes. Somewhere deep down, I wished I could rewind time. Go back to the version of us who held hands without thinking. Who laughed in grocery store aisles. Who stayed up talking about nothing until we fell asleep on the couch. But that version felt far away now. I wrapped my hand tighter around the doorknob. 1 second. 2. And then. My hand was still on the doorknob when I heard Jason move. He didn't say anything, but I could feel him behind me, still close enough to stop me, far enough to let me decide. I was seconds away from turning the handle when my phone buzzed again in my hand. Not a text this time. A call. Liam. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Not yet. The buzzing stopped, and a notification flashed across the screen. Can we talk? I'm outside. My stomach turned. I tightened my grip on the doorknob again, but something pulled me back. Not Jason. Not even guilt. Just hesitation. Doubt. I couldn't tell if it was about Liam, or about what opening this door would mean for everything I'd built. Jason's voice came quietly behind me. If you're going to leave, do it. But be honest about why. Before I could react, another knock sounded, not from the front door, but from the back. I spun around. Jason looked confused too. We both stood still for a moment, trying to make sense of it. Then Jason turned and walked toward the back hallway. I followed slowly, heart pounding harder with each step. When he opened the back door, a figure stepped inside, my sister, Mia. Her eyes bounced between us, wide with urgency. We need to talk, she said, breathless. Mia? What are you doing here? I asked, completely thrown off. She ignored the question. You need to know something, about Liam. Jason stiffened at the name. I swallowed hard. What about him? Mia hesitated, then pulled her phone from her jacket and opened a photo. You don't know who he really is. She handed me the phone. On the screen was a picture of Liam. With a woman. And a child. What is this? I asked, my voice barely coming out. She's his wife, Mia said. And that's their daughter. The ground felt like it tilted beneath me. I stared at the screen, trying to make the image mean something else, but it didn't. It was Liam, smiling, holding hands with a woman and their little girl. I didn't want to believe it. Jason looked at me, silent. He didn't need to say anything. I didn't know, I whispered. I swear, I didn't know. But it didn't matter. The damage was already done. Mia put her hand on my arm. I thought you should know before you made a mistake you couldn't take back. Jason stepped away then, not angrily, but like he couldn't stand in the middle of it anymore. Outside, the doorbell rang again. Liam was still waiting. But now everything was different. Everything I thought I had control over was slipping through my fingers. And the worst part was, I still didn't know what I was going to do next. I stood frozen, the phone still in my hand, Liam's smiling face staring back at me from a life I knew nothing about. His wife. His child. It wasn't just betrayal, it was something deeper. A lie wrapped in charm, masked as connection. The romantic tension that had pulled me toward him suddenly felt cold and cheap. Jason didn't say a word. He didn't need to. I could feel the disappointment coming off him like heat. Not anger, not hate, just deep, painful hurt. The kind that lingers long after the moment passes. I looked at him, really looked at him. The man who had stayed. The one who held space for me even when I was drifting. The one who, despite everything, still waited to hear my answer. I was wrong, I said, my voice cracking. I lost myself. I was looking for something that I already had. Jason's eyes flicked to mine, guarded but soft. Then why didn't you see it? I don't know. Maybe I stopped believing I deserved it. Outside, the doorbell rang again. But this time, I didn't flinch. I walked to the door, opened it, not all the way, just enough, and saw Liam standing there with that same calm confidence he always wore. But now it looked different. Now I saw it for what it was, rehearsed, shallow. You didn't tell me the truth, I said. His smile faltered. I didn't think it mattered. Well, it does. I shut the door without another word. Back inside, Jason was still standing, hands in his pockets, watching me. I crossed the room slowly, unsure what would happen next. I'm not asking you to forget what I did, I said quietly. I just hope you'll let me earn my way back. Jason nodded once. Then, for the first time in what felt like forever, he reached out and held my hand. Not tightly. Just enough. And just when I thought the storm had passed, my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Liam. It was a number I didn't recognize. The message read, I know what happened. We need to talk. It's about Jason. I looked up at him, stunned. He didn't notice. He was already walking into the kitchen, like maybe, just maybe, we'd found solid ground again. But now, a new question had opened. And I wasn't sure I was ready for the answer. Jason sat at the kitchen table, quietly stirring a mug of tea, like it was just any other night. But I knew we weren't the same people who had kissed in this kitchen an hour ago. I stood there, staring at the message on my phone. I know what happened. We need to talk. It's about Jason. I hesitated, then walked over and showed it to him. He read it silently, no change in expression. Do you know who this is? I asked. He shook his head. No. But I think it's time we stop letting other people into our story. He reached for the phone and powered it off. Just like that. I expected more questions, more confusion, but Jason looked tired of drama. Tired of chasing answers outside our marriage when maybe all we ever needed was to just sit with the truth. I sat across from him. I was lost, Jace. I let something meaningless distract me from everything real. I should have seen it sooner, he said. I thought we were safe because we were married. I forgot you still need to feel seen, wanted. There was silence. The good kind. Honest. Not rushed. Then he looked up at me. Do you still want this? I didn't pause. Yes. But only if we rebuild it right. He nodded. Then we start over. One day at a time. The next morning, we deleted Liam's number. Mia stayed over, just to make sure I was okay. She didn't say much, she didn't need to. Sometimes love shows up in quiet loyalty, not big gestures. Over the next few weeks, Jason and I began talking more. Not about bills or chores or routines, but real things. Dreams. Regrets. Things we hadn't said in years. We even started walking together in the evenings, like we used to when we first fell in love. I never found out who sent that last message. Maybe it was someone trying to stir trouble. Or maybe it was a warning I no longer needed. Because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't chasing closure from the past. I was choosing the future, hand in hand with the one who never let go. And that choice was mine.